And what I find fascinating about that is that, so for any of us who are kind of high sensing people, many of us have at some point in our life, maybe often, been told that we are like too sensitive, right? Don't be so sensitive. And what I am clear is happening as I continue my own journey is that what is actually happening for me is I am exponentially turning up the volume on my sensitivity, but it is my sensitivity to myself. I am better able to be in the world just as sensitive as my little heart desires because the spotlight is turned in the right direction. That's been the really interesting aspect of my own journey that I've been poking at for a while now. If we can zoom out a little bit and think of it through the lens of the kosha model. So in the kosha model, we talk about ourselves as having 3 bodies and 5 koshas or sheaths. And the 3 bodies are the physical body, the energetic or the subtle body, and the bliss body. And the energetic body has 3 sheaths within it. That's the breath, pranic sheath, the mental emotional sheath, and the intuitive kind of inner wisdom, intellect sheath. And then the physical body is 1 layer, 1 body, and the bliss body is 1 layer, 1 body. So what I have come to believe and what I am sort of exploring into myself is that many of us, why we, especially those of us who are sensitive souls in some way, we know, inner knowing, innately understand that we are boundless and limitless. We know this to be true. It's the thing we forget when we're born, but that idea of oneness, we know that separation is an illusion and that we are an inextricably connected part of a greater whole. And by that, we are boundless and limitless. The body through which we access that limitlessness is our bliss body. It is our God self. What I think happens is in our culture, we have an overemphasis on the activity of the mental and emotional layer, and therefore the energetic body. We start to kind of favor that. And I think that we get confused and we start to try to access our limitlessness through our subtle body rather than through our bliss body. And so what we do is we take this finer, more subtle energy of the prana and the mental, emotional, and the intuitive and inner knowing, and we blow out the boundaries of those. And so we are just energetically leaking our little selves all over the place. And we mistakenly think that that is an expression of our boundlessness. I think what we come to discover as we start to reestablish a container for our energetic self, true energetic integrity in that, because we have it in our physical bodies. Our skin is very nice, it keeps us contained. But when we start to change the nature of our relationship with our energetic self, and we start to apply a container, and we start to think about ourselves as having energetic integrity and pranic integrity and mental and emotional integrity and an intuitive and inner knowing integrity, we then create a contained version of our subtle self that then gives us access to the true source of our limitlessness and our boundlessness through our bliss body. But we can't get there if we have blown out the boundaries of our energetic self, because we're just like leaking everywhere. And so there's no integrity, there's no container for that energetic body, that energetic presence of ourselves. And so we don't have the level of access to the bliss body and thereby our limitlessness and boundlessness, the truth of it. because we've mistakenly tried to access that limitlessness through our energetic self. How that's relevant to what we were just talking about is, as we are in ever more subtle relationship with ourselves as whole beings, the fullness of the presence of who we are, as we take greater and greater responsibility for wielding our inner resources in a really responsible way that is self-supportive. So as we reclaim our sovereignty, what comes with that is energetic integrity, true boundariedness in our physical, emotional, pranic, and intuitive selves, right? In these two bodies. And because then we are contained in that way, and we have access to these subtler and subtler, more nuanced forms of expression of ourselves and who we are and what we need and what we want and all of those things, we then have, it's like our radio. You imagine that we're tuning the radio of our own resonance out. If it's a digital radio, it maybe starts at 98.5, and we just keep adding decimal places as we really remain devoted, self-devoted to these practices and taking responsibility for ourselves on all of these subtle layers. We're taking the decimal places out further and further and gaining access to subtler and subtler and subtler and subtler energies until we access the ultimate in the subtle energy, which is the bliss self. And then we're just opened up wide, because it's through the center of that torus, through the donut, that we then access our unending expansiveness before we contract again. Ultimately, that's all we are really doing, is all we are really doing is changing the nature of our relationship with ourselves. No big deal. And we can think about it, we can approach it from many different angles. It's like holding a prism in our hands. All we have to do is turn it 1 degree and it changes everything. And we have a whole new area that we can explore. And one of the most important things that we establish early on and have to remind ourselves again and again and again and again is that that's not a problem. That things fall away, that new things emerge, that things we thought were true just 5 minutes ago, we now are like, what? How did I ever believe that? That's not a problem. The changing and the evolving and the shifting is the nature of the journey. It is not indicative of a problem.